Have you ever gotten to a point where you've had to manage potential burnout? And now you've built an Emmy award-winning production company.
I went to school for film. I wanted to make movies. I wanted to entertain people.
How do you foresee production evolving?
I think it's going to be that more cinematic storytelling. I think it's going to be more old school film styles and ideas. They wanted to have a route for business, so they are starting to come up in the art director side, but they don't really understand filmmaking. There's so many places to convince people to put ads that are not necessary. What do we do with these budgets? How do we figure out how to cut this up?
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Drop the mic with Jason Hunt.
I went to school for film. I wanted to make movies. I wanted to entertain people from, loving theater growing up to falling in love with old Hollywood. I really just wanted to kind of be a part of that industry, and I knew very little about it. So I ended up going to a film school in LA that you worked in the industry all day and you were taught at night by people that were currently working in the industry or by industry sort of veterans, right? Like one of my professors wrote every Who's the Boss episode like ever written, but he was also a historian of all things Hollywood. So he would tell us stories about Clark Gable running people over with cars and just like crazy things. But once I got out there, and this was also this was really pre YouTube or in the infancy of YouTube. So I was in film school learning how to edit on like film. I think Final Cut 1 was out, but it was still very much like the earlier Final Cut edits, and even still the higher end premium editing software is built for you to like, they had to make the workflow similar to how someone on film would like actually be editing. So it wasn't like as technically easy for someone to pick up a phone and be like, I'm a filmmaker, and like, doing it. There was lots of technical, acumen you needed to have, and even, access to film. I mean, they were still shooting commercials on film at the time. And I ended up getting a job at a telesetting house, which just means that we took film and put it on beta tapes, like old school digital beta tapes, to take it to the editors who were just now starting to edit digitally. But then they would also we would then deliver the film later because they were still doing final edits on film. With commercials, can you imagine like the extra takes that we have now, but doing that on film? So I was seeing some of the world's best cinematographers and directors coming through this place to do color grading and things like that on commercials, when I had never considered commercials film. Like I had never considered that the creative medium for what I was, learning. And then as I got into film school, I learned, it was me and a bunch of dudes who all wanted to be Scorsese and Tarantino and all of the things. But no one wanted to do paperwork. And I didn't really know what a producer did. I didn't know what that was. But as I started to learn and see, there's this old school thing called a film board, right? Where it's really, you take every single piece, you break down a script to turn them into these long slats that go on this form and on this board and all the way across it. And then they're organized by day. So you're basically organizing all your locations and crew and talent to most efficiently plan your film shoot. And that looking at that puzzle, just sparked that is fun. That looks like real fun to me. Whereas I was never one to, look at an art film or Fellini and say this is amazing. I was like, this is boring. I do not need to see, an hour of a hallway or whatever. I'm not I learned very quickly I was in it for the entertainment value, right? If something does not entertain, it doesn't mean it's not art to somebody, but the value in all of it is entertaining, making someone laugh, making someone feel something they otherwise would have, not been able to. And I started to see the connection between that and advertising and really had an interest sparked. But I didn't want to give up on film. I think I thought I didn't want to sell out. So I tried doing film development for a while, and I did film development with a company that mainly did putting musical artists in film. So my boss at the time, he had started Priority Records. I don't know if you're familiar with like NWA and Ice Cube. He had started their careers essentially with his original record label, but his first actual I learned a lot of lessons through him. The first band he ever signed to his record label was the California Raisins. Do you remember those commercials?
Of course.
He realized that they were not actually a real band, and that the state of California that had commissioned the commercials did not like acquire them as intellectual property, which to him just seemed so ridiculous. So of course that was like his first platinum album was the California Raisins. But many years later and many millions later, I was helping him put his artist in film and put Atlantic artist in film. After doing film development for a while, I just was very bored. I think like you're on the same project for a really long time. And if you think of an advertisement or campaign or commercial and the game of telephone that has to take place just to get that made, imagine a film, right? Like years and years. And by the time you like read the script, fall in love with it, and then years and years go by and you see it on screen, it just feels like this is not what I imagined. And I liked thinking back at my role in advertising, the way the commercials ran. I thought that's really interesting. You're able to do tons of stuff at once. They're really, you're on a different project, like almost every other couple months. And at the time, especially, it was really, as things were going digital and it was a little bit easier, it just was kind of a Wild West. Like you could really have fun with it and come up with like advertising is the place where there aren't as many rules as there are in film. So yeah, I really just was on the advertising agency road for a while, and I worked in-house at production companies and ad agencies, really on both sides. Loved being in-house at an ad agency because versus a production company, it's sort of production companies are known for doing one thing, right? It's like if we have a production company, we would have a particular style, a particular POV. Like we're really good at making this. At least that's what good production companies do. Or they rep certain talent of all that style. Whereas with an agency, it's really like every idea is on the table and like, let's go figure it out. And after about 10 years in-house agencies, I was seeing this disconnect between the communication of an agency to production companies and vice versa, production companies to agencies. You had a lot of agencies that were trying to build their own in-house. Everyone's like, we're going to take it in-house and build our own studio or our own production company. And then you had production companies that were saying, we're going to be our own agency and sell ourselves that way. And it just felt like unnecessary. Like there's plenty of work to go around and everyone should focus on the thing that they are good at. And I think in agency life, many creative departments don't have, and production departments don't have the capacity or the time to like really strategize how something is getting made. They just sort of take the order from creative and go, okay, this is what you want. I'll go make that. And there's not a lot of like, okay, well, why is it this? Are you sure it's this and not this? Or like really strategizing together. So that's what I sought to make, and started the Aux Co in 2017, really as a auxiliary department to in-house teams. So really to be able to plug and play into in-house teams as early as possible in the process, to bring production expertise, to find the right partners, to find those production companies and directors and photographers that are going to fit their brief, to help them strategize around a pitch or a brief, instead of just like, well, the client says they need a commercial. Yeah, but is that really going to get them what they need? Or should we that with XYZ?
Yeah.
And kind of like as an executive producer consultant, if you will. But I didn't want to build something. I didn't want to build a company of one.
Yeah.
Like I knew that very early on. So I structured it to be, this was, 2017. No one was using the term fractional. So luckily that's, been up and coming more and more. But I think I do often get confused with a production company because it's a fairly new model within the system. Typically an ad agency has, a staff of in-house producers, maybe, or they just have one really burnt out EP that's literally doing everything and barely has enough time to go find the right like people and new vendors, or they if they're a holding company, they probably have to use one of the holding company teams to produce the project, which they have no incentive to do the best job that's ever been done. And I think that now in the last 5 to 10 years, especially, you've seen the rise of these small ad agencies that are really taking on the big holding company agencies of the world, just because they don't have to charge the 50% overhead on top of everything. But at the same time, that means they have to stay really lean. They have to make sure that they're not, one bad pitch away from, closing their doors. So having, the fractional production units, agency producers, event producers, whatever it is that they need, just that expertise on hand, can be really helpful.
Yeah, I think that that's a brilliant move to make, because I mean, I see it on the front lines all the time. You get business owners that are in the operation and just they're working to move their business forward, and they really don't know what direction to go with what it is. In my specific case, it's digital marketing, whether it's SEO, Google Ads, paid Meta, paid TikTok, whatever it is. They don't know which direction to go. And sometimes they think they know, but they don't know. But they need a trusted source like yourself as an outsourced creative officer or a fractional creative officer to kind of lead them in the right direction on where they can best apply that budget to move the needle quickest. And as you know, in your business, in order to gain that trust, you got to get those small wins first, right?
Yeah. And I think also I learned very quickly on, before, when it was still just me, as a consultant sort of business model, I never had this problem in-house, but even less so in this model of saying this is not the best version of that idea. Whereas like your in-house team is just going to say yes to everything, and no one's going to push the boundaries. There's no incentive to, and there's this worry of like, exactly, like it's not their fault they don't know. They shouldn't know everything. They only need to know what they know. But if they've not seen an example of this creative done a different way, it's not going to be at the top of their mind. But if they wait until, if an agency has to wait until they've perfectly packaged this idea, sold it in through client, done all the budgeting and scoping, to then go to production or someone like myself and say, make this, there is no improvement that can be made. There's no efficiency that can be made. There's no like strategy changes that can be, applied. A lot of times, I think it's become this fear of me asking, like someone asking questions about an idea is not conflict. It's not saying that's a bad idea. It's literally just working together. I think, that in agency life has gotten really hard. Everyone's very protective of their ideas and they don't want outside opinions. They just want someone to go execute it until it, is done and it's bad. And then they want someone else to take the blame for it.
It's true. It's true, right? How much are you fixated on the result of what's produced?
I love being involved with that as much as possible, because I find that I have spent many, many years, whether before my business or during, working on campaigns, working on projects that then fall really flat because no one was, bringing in media early enough. No one was bringing in PR early enough. Why wasn't this like holistically being talked about? And so now that's very regularly the first few questions that I ask, because I think that the best form of any creative is, needs to take into account how your audience is interacting with it. So it can't just be taking the same version that's going to be your banner ad and putting it on the subway, right? Or putting it here. You have to really strategize how someone's seeing it, and, and to maximize it. Otherwise you're just wasting your money. And, or you're assuming that just because someone has seen it, it's going to do anything.
100%.
Impressions don't mean anything anymore.
No, but you're absolutely right. That's what happens all the time, though. Even when we're working closely with clients, it's like, oh, they really like this specific creative, or there's this YouTube video they created last year that they spent $10,000 on, and they want to get it in front of people. Well, if you look at the data, people only watching 3 seconds of that and getting onto the next piece of content. So it's actually probably not a great piece of content, or maybe it needs some tweaking. This morning,
or is there another place for that content? I think you're seeing right now a lot of people are wanting and craving longer form, right? I think you wouldn't have Netflix now paying to have video podcasts, right? Like, and the investments that are making on longer form, social series, people are wanting that, especially as they're seeing that their film studios and their television studios are not producing the kind of entertainment that they want. They're going to look for it elsewhere. So I do think there's a place for longer form branded entertainment to exist, but I think it's more of, what are you putting out there in certain digital media and maximizing it? I think like you're going to see a lot with AI, I think, where it's, yes, I can more easily look at all of my lower hanging fruit digital assets, all of my banner ads or certain digital media ads, and really try to customize them for where they're going to be, but that's not going to cost me as much. So then I can actually invest in telling better stories or, really connecting and community building is going to be really huge. Building your own community, not borrowing influencers' community. Influencers are on their way out. It's all going to be about making your consumer base, your customers feel like an influencer. Make average people feel like they can have that. Or, really helping people get off of their phones and off their laptops and all together and going and living the lifestyle that your brand stands for. That's going to be really huge, I think, in the next 5 years.
I recently returned from speaking at a conference about AI and marketing, and my inbox went absolutely bonkers with people requesting my presentation slides. Now here's the thing. Instead of emailing slides to dozens of people, I decided to do something better. I launched Amplify Your Brand on School. It's where I'm sharing the AI tools that actually work, not the garbage everyone's hyping about. The exact processes our agency uses to save 15 plus hours every week. Real strategies that drive results. You'll get my slides for my presentations, weekly live business audits, and access everything we do at Merged Media. No fluff, no BS, just what works. If you want to learn more, go check out Amplify Your Brand on School. That's school, SKOOL.com/AYB. See you on the inside. That is bang on. That was like a mic drop there because, I think that's exactly what we all need to lean into now. Not get scared of what the AI is doing. We'll dive in a little bit more to AI in a bit, but I do want to, make note of like, everyone's like, oh, how AI is going to take jobs. AI is going to take my job. AI is making you do your job much easier. I think AI is allowing you to let AI do what it does best and allow you to do what humans do best, which is going out there, networking, like you said, building community, going to physical events. AI is never going to take somebody out for dinner, right? So AI is never going to shake a hand, but it allows you the opportunity to build that community and go out there and do the things that makes us human. Yeah, that could be spending
investing the money in the stuff that really works. I think that AI is going to help people really analyze the digital media spend. I think we had 25 million in wasted programmatic spend in like Q2 alone this year, because as you've seen the rise of influencer media and all of these other digital, like, oh, I can put an ad on everything, right? There's just like so much, like you could pay. There's so many places to convince people to put ads that are not necessary. And I think that in all of that, you've had these marketing departments that are like, what do we do with these budgets? How do we figure out how to cut this up? And typically, the people giving them the data are also the ones selling them the media in a lot of places. And I'm not saying that they can't always trust it, but you can make data say whatever you want for a lot of, in a lot of ways. So if you can use AI to like maximize that, plus like it's never going to go away. You're going to need that, that space. You're going to need that brand awareness. But then it's also like going to give you the ability to then take real money and do real things, because the audience is starting to, that's why you're seeing a lot of people going back to like very retro film kind of grades, or, this throwback to Y2K-ish sort of a thing, because people want to know something is real, and they're more likely to know it's real if it looks a little bit off or it's physically in person, not, the perfect stuff, which they have the expectation that like a banner ad and digital media, certain ads, like, yeah, those can be perfect, but the real place you're going to be telling your brand storytelling is not going to be there anymore.
That's very interesting, very fascinating. The fixation on the vintage and Y2K content, which is, we're actually running it this morning. We've been running a test for weeks now, but specifically this morning we launched 28 different ads for a campaign promoting local SEO. Okay, it's such like local SEO. If you're a small business, you're looking for local leads, contact us. So we went with so many different variations of creative. We've used, AI to generate cartoon-like images with captivating headlines, me in the street talking about a case study as I'm walking down the street. We have like AI using Sora 2 to create like these really inspiring, intriguing 10-second video clips, Netflix style, on why somebody needs local SEO, like all these different variations. And I'm so interested. I don't care what I think looks good. I care about what's going to generate the lowest cost per lead. And that's what we're putting to the test. And if to your point, if it's the AI stuff underperforms, and I know this because we've ran lots of tests comparing AI to human copywriting, and human copywriting wins every time.
Yeah.
The human nuance is something that connects with people. AI cannot really connect with people unless you personalize your AI, which is a totally different thing. But I mean, the point is that I'm very interested to see the results of this. And I'm interested to hear like kind of, how you are really adapting to AI within your business at the Auxiliary Co.
I'm using AI constantly from everything from like SEO and sales pipeline, and constantly optimizing. And, I'm always like, why is my computer not running? Or, because I have like Perplexity doing like 5 things. And like, I'm always trying to take work off of my plate if I can have AI do it, right, in any capacity. Then I think there's, on the film editing, standpoint, it's great with DAMs and with organizing large databases of client work, which has been really good. And also just, I think, even with pitching and creative, being able to it's not like you're ever going to use the final copy, right? Like you said, like from AI, but generating ideas faster. It's like the equivalent of being in a room with your creative team for a week, like can be done in a day. Right. Like it feels like you could do that. Also, I think from my end of it, since we produce, right, so we make commercials and photo shoots and events, a lot of what we are planning and what's being ideated, you can only ideate around what you can imagine, what you can see. If you've never done something, or you can't imagine how it would work, maybe you're not going to think of it. Or if you've thought of this idea, but you're trying to figure out how it's going to work, and then you have to sell it to the client. If you can be like, the more we can get a good representation of what it is we're going to make to get sign off and alignment around, better, right? Like that's going to put us in a much better place down the road. And it's honestly going to be able to allow for more innovation too.
How do you foresee production evolving with AI, and what sorts of things is it going to allow? Obviously, we touched a bit on it, but maybe dive a little bit deeper into the importance or the factors or the things that people are going to be spending more time on, and that AI is going to be able to replace.
I think that I think it's going to be that more cinematic storytelling. I think it's going to be going back to, going back to some of these more old school film styles and ideas that just make the viewer know that there's a person on the other side of that camera. Not as glossy and fake and filtered as everything that we're seeing on social media. I think that, I also am seeing a lot more MOS. There's no need for dialogue. You could tell an entire story, shoot an entire film, like we just saw with what was that cat film that now I can't remember the name of. It won an Oscar. It's amazing. It's this there's no dialogue the entire time. And I think we're going to see more of that because it's built for social, right? People don't have to worry about it. I think the art of filmmaking is going to kind of be the side of it that they need to do, whether it's creative innovation through AI and animation, or creative approaches to filming. Now that it's no different in a lot of ways to when everything went digital, right? Because the film industry really had to change, because now they had to make things a lot easier or cheaper. But at the same time, like, you're not paying for the piece of equipment, you're paying for the people behind it, right? And I think having more skills in that, because like anyone can now do basic editing with AI and, their phone. So what you now have the ability to, do that first round of editing faster and focus more on pushing the envelope. I think we're going to see more innovation in the industry as far as creative style, because, anytime you have that's sort of the balance between technical and creative. You're going to, we've seen this, and then I think we're going to see the rise in creative to sort of meet that. The same way that we're going to need to see things that people will need to know things are real is because you'll know that there was a real person that thought of that, because it's not something that AI would have done.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a music video director. That was my dream. Like, I wanted to go to school, be a music video director. That was the thing. And then football got my attention and I went a different way. But also even when I finished school, I was like, yeah, I want to record a music video. I used to have a band, so I wanted to do a music video and stuff, but it requires tens of thousands of dollars and obviously production and equipment and this and that, something that was never on the radar for me. But this morning I'm sitting there with my business partner and he's showing me what he did on Sora 2 last night. And just like the simple prompt of an idea that he had in his head and to bring it to something that looked amazing. It was only a 10-second clip, right? But I was just like, that is insane. But to your point, Dani, like you were saying, like you still have to be the human that come up with those creative ideas. And I think that is where it's going to be, that power is it allows people to just be more creative. It's going to be pretty cool to kind of bring the bar down in a sense, to allowing as many people as possible to tap into their creative links, because they don't need that $10,000 production company to put that idea to fruition. And I think that's, to your point, that's going to bring up the level of the game, right?
Because, I mean, even if you see things like there were these guys, I think in Australia, that were making these commercials for a used car dealership with their phone. Like, they were making these hilarious TikTok commercials. And someone was like, a client of a client or whatever at Google was basically saying, like, see, why should this cost this much? It's like, yeah, but if those guys can do that with $5, imagine if we gave them $50,000.
Yeah.
It's the argument for it being cheaper is not that it should be cheaper. The argument is all they're doing is showing us that simple is always best.
Yes.
But you can still make simple look beautiful in other ways with, things add up, right? And there's certain reasons you want to shoot things a little bit better, but it's more of like, take the simplicity of those ideas, of those examples, and build on that. I think more. Very often I do a lot of what I end up doing with the consulting side of it, especially at smaller ad agencies, is no one is teaching these up and coming art and copy teams, especially art directors, like they're designers, right? And they wanted to be, they wanted to have a route for business. So they are starting to come up in the art director side, but they don't really understand filmmaking or translating an idea onto a screen, whether that's still or moving or whatever. And very often, like, I will be pitched ideas and people are telling me things, and I'm like, I know how you think that's going to translate, but that's not actually how it's going to, like, this is what it's going to look like. And here's the thing you have to think about to get that. So very often I will say, if you cannot sell me your idea in one sentence or one image, like a movie poster, right? And that couldn't tell me the entire idea for for whatever it is we're going to make, then you don't have an idea. Like, it has to still be simple. And when you make things overly complicated, that's why you need to have millions of dollars for those crazy commercials that make no fucking sense, because otherwise they fall flat. I think that you have to, that's what storytelling is. It's not, that's the craft of it. It's not like how long something is or short something is or how expensive it was to make. I think it's how you take the simplicity of the idea and communicate that to where people are seeing it and they're thinking and feeling exactly what you want them to be thinking and feeling. When we see things like the Sydney Sweeney ad and other ads like that they have, the idea isn't an idea. The idea isn't a story. The idea is empty. Like, it is just void of actual thing. It is just an empty piece of nothing. It's a, empty vase, if you will. And you put it out there, people are going to put whatever they want in it. And I think that's what you have to get in front of. And that's a good idea of like telling people why it's a bad idea and not just saying yes to everything all the time.
You said it, man. Like you said it, it's simplicity, right? Making it simple. I think if you look at a trajectory of time, when you look at like a graph and you see like people's attention spans and the importance of that creative or that message being as simple as possible, it's on par, right? Like people's attention spans are so short. If it requires any additional thinking, screw it, I'm gone. I'm scrolling on to the next thing. Magazine ads back in the 50s and 60s needed to have a lot of information because people had longer attention spans to consume all that content, right? This is why Facebook ads work really well with people that are over 50 years old because they're stopping at every scroll, every post, reading the content, hitting that see more. Millennials, Instagram, they're swiping all day long. So, you know, with that being said, I think it is so important to just simplify the message and allow people's imagination to take from it as what they wish.
Yeah, because if you don't know what you want someone to, how you want them to react to it, how you want it's not just like, I want them to call me. It has to be like hitting a note that they can relate to and really like giving them a reaction. And if you don't know what you want reaction wise, then you can't like build backwards from there. And I think that's why a lot of really good music video directors become really good ad directors, because those are simple ideas that have to be simple because of money and time and all of those things. And, you know, they're not really they're communicating a message without communicating a message, even more so. And I think that's why like those tend to be the ones that do really well in advertising. But also I think with the evolution of how cheap and fast everything has to be now, as far as a production timeline is concerned, you lose a lot of time for rational thought. But I think you're also losing that, the opportunity you used to have to tell more of your story and to provide a little bit more context. But that doesn't mean it's always necessary. I think what am I trying to say? Oh, it used to be that, and if I was an ad agency and we wanted to make a commercial for Jeep or whatever, right? We came up with a concept. I Don Drapered it. I said my one, word that just blew everyone away. And then you brought in directors who would bid for it. And then they then would really take that $4 million and spend months and months ideating and building it. And they would do the bulk of the creative work after that. And that was like really, I would say 2008 right? And those early aughts, since as YouTube and everything has come up and as everyone's like, well, I can make this with my phone or I can make this cheaper. That has condensed the production timeline to where really an agency is having to come up with every single part of the idea before the client will even pay for it. They're having to almost board the full thing out, which is another great thing that AI will do. But because of that, I think there's the older creatives who were around and came up during the era of the directors really doing everything or the editors really making a lot of decisions, to now like these young ad agency creatives who are like, I wasn't taught how to do that. Why do I have to do that? And that's where I kind of end up in the middle the most, is like reminding them how it works, reminding them like what their job is to decide and what the director's job is to decide, because you can't just make all these assumptions and then think that we're all seeing the same thing. We're not. Like everyone starts from a different like blank slate. It's not, I think that's what I'm loving AI so much for with storyboarding and just visualization of stuff is kind of getting there. But I think it's directors are more now, is in the commercial world, at least, taking your vision as an agency and just sort of bringing it to life. They do have to add their own flair, but they're not necessarily being brought on in the same way they were to like lead the creative. And so there's this generation of creatives that are needing to learn that skill set.
Talking about the fractional creative consultant or fractional creative officer. I'm a fractional CMO for a couple businesses, and the bucket gets full pretty quickly. I'm curious as to how you manage multiple clients when you're leaned upon to be that fractional creative officer.
I mean, really, I am a fractional executive producer. So that's, the term. And we have fractional agency producers, event producers of every level and skill that we embed in-house at agencies and brands, white label, so that they're able to embed, like really embed with the team, but also be involved a lot earlier so that, they're not packaging up these ideas that they don't have the money or the time or the right strategy behind. And really it's been, I kind of, my team, it fluctuates in size depending on how many clients there are, but you know, that's really like where I shine is like, I'd rather be just fractional EPing for a ton of different agency and brand clients, doing what I do best, just giving, advice and ideas and the right partners. And then, training agency producers. Sometimes I actually just trained their in-house agency producers, and it doesn't even need to be anyone on my team, because they don't have the time to, they don't have the skill set to, they don't have, or they have a couple of producers that are just so slammed. And once they start working with my team, they realize that their producers have not been, bringing that same quality level. So they have me train them. Or like I said earlier, I'll train creative teams and how to put together a pre-pro book. I don't know that answers your question about how I juggle it all. I just really enjoy doing it. And I find that like, I don't want to be on set. If I'm on set for something, then something has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
Or, we are just like really strapped. That's not where I shine anymore. I think it's more, I get more jazz out of like developing a creative idea, finding the right people for it, and then overseeing the teams sort of executing it, to certain standards. And with most of my team, like we have operating procedures. And since we either do it based on our set of procedures or in-house, like when we're embedded with a team, we're on all of their systems. So it's really just sort of checking in, making sure that, in my mind, I have a creative bar that I set very, very high for every single project. And that's why really it's creative directors that call me first, that are all like, that have known me for years, that my team and I just know them so well. We don't have they just say something, we're like, okay, they want this type of person. And that's, I think, what's really important that a lot of agency creatives on the higher end side, or even, agencies in general, don't have from their in-house teams.
Have you ever gotten to a point where you've had to manage potential burnout? Because burnout can happen it's hard to pass up opportunities, especially opportunities that you're super excited about working on, but then you need to balance those old clients that maybe become stale in your mind, but you still have to perform for them as well. Have you gotten to that point? How did you deal with it? How did you overcome it?
I wouldn't say that it's burnout. This has actually been a year where I've had the least amount of clients because I've actually rolled off a lot of clients. I think I spent, it's almost been 10 years, having my company. I spent the first 5 saying yes to absolutely everything. Both, that being both good and bad. But then, after a long time, when you get known as the person who can put out the dumpster fire, or at least who can take the dumpster fire and keep pushing it down the line, and can fix every single problem, then you're the person that's only called for problems. And it's like, yes, I can fix the problem, but don't just call me. I have clients that it felt like they were only calling me when they didn't have enough time or budget because they knew I would just say yes and figure it out. And then it just became not worth my time doing and not worth my effort, right? Like if I wasn't going to be heard, if it felt like they didn't, it was more of like, hey, we made this mess, clean it up. Yeah. For the first few years, that's fine. But I can't go on 10 years with a client treating us like that and like not really wanting to develop that relationship and that trust. So I've had to kind of let those clients go, honestly, because they were taking up more of my time than it was worth, right? Like they want me, they don't want my team. They, a project that is like no money, no time, no anything is going to take more of my time and effort than something where I can like really shine. Like I can give me a big budget. I'll really blow your socks off. But no, I was finding that I was like, just being seen as the problem solver because they knew they didn't have to worry about it. They knew they could give it to me and they wouldn't have to worry. But I had some clients that I think that was a situation. And the more that I would push against stuff, it just became aware that, you know what, you still see me as this type of, agency or this type of client business. And that's not the model that we, want to continue to build on. So I had to let those clients go, which is just, that's okay. Like it sucks. It sucks being slow sometimes, but I think you have to make room for and know what you want in order for it to come.
100%. Time now, I know we're both parents, it's like time is more valuable than money now in a lot of cases, right? So you got to value that time accordingly, right? And
even staff, it's like, I'm not taking something just to keep my staff busy if it's not going to, if it's not going to further my company in any other way. Like I had to just, stop doing that. I'm also now doing a lot more of these podcasts and speaking events and things, and just prioritizing where I want to spend my time and finding those agencies and those brand clients that like trust our know-how. That is now like premium. Like, if it constantly feels like we're being questioned, if it constantly feels like, we're having to fight for certain approaches that, which we're literally being paid to tell them, then, those just aren't situations we want to put ourselves in. It's not worth the time.
Do you have a number two in your business or somebody that you have a partner that you
I have a number
with?
two. I have a number two. I not since day one, but I've had a lot of kind of people come and go. I've had a lot of great people come and go and come back. And I have a producer that is she's amazing. And she's sort of my secondary. And then I currently am in the process of, I have fractional COOs and partners like that, other small business owners where it's like, we kind of come on and help each other.
I think that's so important. I mean, I got a business partner that handles our entire operation. He's a CEO. I'm a CMO. He does the things that I hate. I do the things that he hates. And it's a really good synergy there. I think it's so important to have that in your business as a business owner.
Yeah. I'm probably going to be bringing a partner on in the next couple of years. I'm also partnering on a production software that I'm investing in and acting as a strategic advisor and investor, where it's really like the first project management software tool for production companies and agencies managing creative content production assets. So that's really fun, and just sort of expand to something that I've wanted to make myself for over a decade, and then really found a partner who was making something very similar and who was very open to my my notes and feedback. And that's become something really fruitful that I'm really just excited about putting a lot of time and focus into.
Awesome. Dani, this has been great. If our audience has any questions for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Feel free to email me anytime at Dani, DANI, at theaux.co. That's theaux.co. Or you can check us out on LinkedIn, obviously, or our website at theaux.co. Anytime, just say hi.
You on the gram?
I am on the gram. We are redoing our Instagram right now because I'm terrible at it. I think it's one thing too where we joke, and when you go to our website, you'll see like our work is other people's work. So it's sort of, been an interesting time to be like, here's this video that we made for these people that we can't tell their clients that it wasn't them because it was really us. So great. Instagram has always been a fun tackle for us that we're now trying to redo.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Dani.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, podcast listener, for checking out that episode of Drop the Mic. If you like that episode, I would love it if you went on over to your podcast platform and left us a 5-star review. And if you don't want to miss an upcoming episode of Drop the Mic, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks again. See you soon.